I say we're off to a good start. Good morning, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving. I'm curious, is anyone here because they're visiting for Thanksgiving? Visiting relatives? I was thinking in the car on the way here, we're either going to get a full house because people are here visiting for Thanksgiving, or there's going to be nobody because people are here visiting for Thanksgiving. But I think that, well, I'm happy that everybody came out today. And also for our Jewish friends, I will say belatedly a sweet new year to you. Now, we're going to talk some more about Thanksgiving, but I just want to stick with Rosh Hashanah for a minute here. I don't know if there's any other holiday in any religious tradition quite like the 10-day period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which just ended yesterday. They call it the days of awe. And just the sweep of emotions over that time. It was new to me to learn from Rabbi Alan Liu's book, which is called This is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared, about the 10 days of awe. That these 10 days kind of trace the development of the soul over a human lifetime, from terror to acceptance, from confusion to clarity, from complacency to awe. And that is a profound journey. And it's one that Rabbi Liu insists isn't just for Jewish people. People of all faiths or no faith at all can benefit from that. And it's the process that's important. You're laying yourself bare to the universe, like, here I am in all my brokenheartedness. Just articulating that unlocks something in us and in each other. Every one of us needs to make that transformative trip, each in our own way, Rabbi Liu would say. You can call it the journey from lost to found. And that, my friends, is what today's service is all about. And I'm so looking forward to walking the path with you this morning. Let's start by singing together. We sing together our song of thanksgiving, rejoicing in truth which the ages have brought. For thine enfolds us and helps the peace that holds us, and leads beyond the goals which our forebears once saw. We sing of the freedoms which martyrs and heroes have won. Great pivot, everyone. All right. Well, welcome again. I'm so glad you could join us here this morning at North Shore Unitarian Church, where it's our mission to encourage each other, to support each other in living lives of depth, meaning, and purpose. My name is Bruce Grierson, and I will be your service associate this morning. In this community, we celebrate people from all walks of life, no matter who you are or who you love, no matter what brought you here, no matter what the word grace means to you on this Thanksgiving Day. We hope you feel welcome here in this humble space where we meet every Sunday on the traditional ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people. A couple of weeks back, Ken Coates suggested that reconciliation, this work that we've committed to as a nation, as smaller groups within the nation, amounts to the first baby steps of a long process, but it's happening. It's not a burden, it's an opportunity, it's a gift, as is this day for me to be with you. It's good to be here. And now we light our chalice. With words spoken, with slight variations by Unitarians for 450 years. We kindle this flame as a symbol of our gathering.
May the light of understanding illuminate our darkness. May the warmth of sharing bring us peace.
Our candle of joys and concerns that we light second here, thank you, Allison, for that, marks a kind of time to tap into what some of the others in the community are going through, the highs and the lows. I will say that Karen Freed had surgery for a detached retina and is recovering at home. Has anyone seen the play Come From Away? It was passing through town not long ago. It's also a movie now. There's a very moving moment in that play where the stranded airline passengers of all faiths file into the local church on Sunday morning, and the pastor kind of holds everyone's grief and marks the moment of all those losses. And they sing the words you see here. Those who have left are never truly gone. A candle's in the window, and the kettle's always on. And I think that Janelle would have appreciated that, and Francis, and June, and Vivian, and Nancy, and Mark, and Chris, and Maurice, and Rosemary, and everyone we have lost in this beloved community. Our third candle is a candle of global concerns. Now, there's a phrase that we're starting to hear around the October 7th anniversary of events in the Middle East. And that phrase is that it has been a year without words, because there are no words. So in that spirit, we light this candle of global concerns, and I'm going to ask that we observe 2 moments of silence. But just before we do, I want to plant one image in your mind, and maybe it can rattle around in the silence. I want you to imagine extending a circle as wide as it will go. There's a bit of text that made it from Jewish scripture all the way through to Islamic scripture intact. It's just 2 sentences, and here they are. Whoever kills a soul, it is as if they have slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as if they have saved mankind entirely. Let's observe our silence. There was a fascinating study a few years ago of Australian kindergartners. Researchers went into classrooms and they asked the children to point in the direction of home. Well, the white kids kind of pointed at random. But the indigenous kids, they were correct the majority of the time. How did they know? They just knew. They knew where home was. In that spirit, I invite Vox Lumina up to turn that sentiment into song. So this is a story that really requires a campfire and an evening to tell it properly, but I'm going to give you the short of it right now. So many years ago, my friend Drew and I went on a hike that was a little bit above our pay grade, a little bit above our experience level. We went out to climb the Golden Hind, which is a mountain on Vancouver Island in Strathcona Park. That's the highest mountain on the island. It's around 7,000 feet. But we were actually feeling pretty okay about it. We were young, we were fit. The trickiest thing was just getting to the mountain, because it's dead in the middle of the wilderness. It's a couple of days hike just to get in there. So we set out with gusto, but by the afternoon we ran into some trouble. We were edging down a fairly steep embankment. At this point, Drew's about 10 meters below me, and I dislodged a rock about the size of a cantaloupe, and I watched it go, boom, hits him right in the head. Almost knocked him out. And the poor guy, he's clinging to the rock, dazed, and blood is just gushing out of him. I scooch down to him, and we try to staunch the blood with a white t-shirt that instantly turns red. And we're thinking, okay, abort the mission. We're going back. But it turns out we can't go back. We try to go back, but the slope is too steep and slick. We're like rats in a toilet bowl. We just keep sliding back down. So the only choice is to continue on deeper into the wild. Now, the trails in the back country of Strathcona Park were very poorly marked in those days. I hope they've fixed that now. But we soon realized we've lost the trail, and we don't know where we are. Now, this is just pre-GPS, right? You got nothing. We're just lost. We're literally bushwhacking through kind of curtains of underbrush and towering trees, and we feel the squeeze of real jeopardy. Like, this is actually really bad. And we knew that there was at least one person in the general area, because we'd seen a float plane fly into Buttle Lake, which is at the base of the mountain, to drop somebody off, we guessed. And the plane hadn't come back, so we sort of headed in that general way. Our only kind of orienteering point was a kind of slot on the horizon where the plane had sort of roughly gone. But, we were lost. We were lost. Now, there's no shortage of advice out there on what to do if you're lost in the wilderness. Always have a notebook in hand was one thing I read, I guess so you can write your will. Climb to a high point and get your bearings. Well, we were in a valley. The high point was our bearing. So my favorite counsel was from a writer called Patrick McManus. He said, if you're hopelessly lost in the backcountry, the first thing you do is scoop water up in your hat and pour it down a badger hole. Because someone is bound to show up and ask why you're doing such a crazy-ass thing. Whereupon that person leads you out of trouble. Anyway, there were no holes, there were no badgers, there were no good Samaritans showing up to bail us out. So here's how the next 48 hours goes for us. Basically from bad to worse. We run out of food. We run out of fuel for the stove. We run into a huge brown bear coming out of the lake that scares what's left of the wits out of us. Poor Drew's lost so much blood that he's not really in his right mind. And it all feels extremely unpromising, and every step is taking us farther from civilization. Somehow, eventually, we find the lake, and we pitch our tent. And Drew lies down in there, and I can see him slipping away into sleep. And I try to not let him do that, because isn't that what they say? If somebody, someone with a head wound, you don't want them to fall asleep because it could be the big sleep. So it goes like that until night comes, at which point Drew rallies a little, and we stand at the edge of the lake in the darkness, and we point our flashlight out across the lake. And we send a Hail Mary, the only thing I remember from Cub Scouts. 3 short flashes, 3 long, and 3 short. SOS. So I'm actually going to push pause on this yarn for a second. I promise I'll return to tell you how it ends, and I guess, spoiler alert, I'm still here, so you kind of know how it ends. There's a psychologist named Ken Hill, a Canadian guy from St. Mary's University in Halifax, and he studies, I guess you'd call his area of study, human disorientation. And he said something that's always stuck with me. Most people don't know how close they are to being lost. And what he meant is that most people's orientation skills are pretty shaky. They're shakier than they think. And, there's two kinds of knowledge in this domain. There's something called route knowledge, and that's like, do you know the way to San Jose? And then there's something called survey knowledge, which is different. Survey knowledge is a sense of where you are in relation to other things. So like those kids in the Australian kindergarten class, it's not the way you've come that matters, it's where you are right now within the constellation of other important things in your life, like home, right? Keeping all of that front of mind. That's situational awareness. And most of us suck at it. And by the way, men are not inherently better navigators than women. They just think they are. Okay, so some of us suck at survey knowledge more than others, and I suck at it more than almost anyone else I've ever met. I remember one shopping trip with the kids to the mall. Not a big mall, not a big parking lot. My daughter Maddie had to find our car. She was 5. My instincts are so reliably bad that they're almost good in the sense that I can take a gut reading and just go the other way. And I tell you all this not as a pathetic bid for sympathy, but just so that we must try to better understand lostness in all its forms. Is it a kind of curse? Is it a fascinating challenge? And if some of us are champions at getting lost, can we learn to get better at being found? All right. John Grierson, founder of the National Film Board, and unfortunately no relation, used to say that everything is beautiful if you get it in the right order. Now, it would have been beautiful if I had met this gentleman before Drew and I had set out to climb the Golden Hind. Anyone recognize him? Tim Jones. Tim Jones used to be the leader of North Shore Rescue. Now, I met him years ago when Explorer magazine assigned me to do a profile of him. And I think it might have been the last print story about him. Tim died tragically of a heart attack on Mount Seymour at age 57. So we spent the afternoon in his office at the North Shore Rescue Mothership. They called it the Tim Pit. And we were surrounded by maps and charts and radios. And Tim helped me understand how this group of volunteer superheroes could be so good at finding people lost in the North Shore Mountains. And I should say, I don't know how much you appreciate this. I don't think I did before I started working on this story. But where we live is really unique in North America. It's super rare to have this much gnarly wilderness so close to a major city, where you can literally step off a city bus, walk for 1 minute, and you're in deep forest for 1,000 kilometers. And people do this, right, in flip-flops. Right? Oblivious to the danger. Next thing you know, they're blundering toward devilish gully systems with names like Thrasher Creek or Suicide Gully, and they're deep in the soup. So when I met with Tim, there was a big rescue unfolding, and it was already in the news. A young guy named Jamie Martin, a 21-year-old roofer from Ontario, had come to BC to do a little backcountry snowboarding alone. They found his truck in the parking lot at Grouse. So North Shore Rescue snapped into action. They did an air search, came up empty. Then they sent a field team in. There was no sign of the guy at the end of day 2. Day 3, they found some tracks. And Tim told me, you can tell a lot from tracks in the snow. You can tell about the temperament of the person who made them. Were the tracks linear? Yes. This gentleman moved with great purpose from A to B. And then, Tim said, he rethought his plan, and he moved with great purpose from B to C. We said, this is a different kind of cat. He's able to stay calm. So we knew that there was a chance he was still alive. Also, there was no trail of discarded clothes. I don't know if you've heard this, but sometimes when people become hypothermic, their mind tricks them into thinking that they're overheating and they start stripping down. So search teams often discover bodies that are naked or almost naked. Anyway, they found Jamie Martin on day 4, alive. He was huddled under a log, too weak to even roll into the open to make himself visible. They tied a rope to him and they helicoptered him to hospital. And that guy was so grateful, he went on a speaking tour to raise money for this group of 40 volunteers who had saved his life. 40 people involved. That search cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as it made the news, it reignited the debate about whether folks who get lost because of their own poor judgment should have to pay for the rescue themselves. And Tim was adamant about this. Absolutely not. He said, because that might stop some people who are lost from calling for help. And we don't want to be a society that turns its back on people, even those who make big-time mistakes. So you can see why they made North Shore Rescue into a TV series. There are just so many fascinating human dynamics on both sides, high-stakes decisions, and a moral dimension to the whole thing that I was actually surprised by. Now, I'm still waiting for them to make a TV series about another kind of search team, the only one I've ever been part of. This one's a bit less life and death, although there was a lot on the line spiritually for this congregation. I'm talking, of course, about the Ministerial Search Committee. Many of you have been on one. Some of you were on mine. Now, I'm not allowed to share too much of what went down behind closed doors there. We're covenanted to keep the details private. And that's why I was thrilled to see the American writer Michelle Hunovan publish this book not long ago. Now, Michelle is a Unitarian in a congregation in Southern California, and she was on their search committee for a minister. And she too was covenanted not to report on it, so she changed the names and made some tweaks and turned it into a book of fiction. And it's awesome. I recommend it to everyone. If you do read it, I suspect your reaction might be the same as mine. Get out of my head, Michelle Hunovan. Because the issues that group deals with in their search are so familiar. So here's how a ministerial search is different from a wilderness search. Well, there's lots of ways that it's different, but here's a big one. You have no clear search image. Your quarry, you don't know what they look like, or even if they exist, right? It really is a leap of faith that you're going to find a candidate that satisfies all the criteria that everyone is looking for. And that's the key word, everyone. The thing with a ministerial search is, it's not just about what you want. You're sort of channeling the wishes of the whole congregation. Now, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here if I don't reveal the names of people here, but one person on our team said at one point, toward the end of the process where we were starting to try to close in on having to make a decision, this person said, I gotta confess, I'm at a bit of a loss here. There's the candidate I want, and then there's the candidate I believe who would be best for the congregation right now, and then there's the candidate who I think is the best fit for who we hope to become. And they're all different people. In Michelle's book, the search team was in the same pickle. Each candidate they interviewed had some strengths and some weaknesses. Each candidate, and to my mind, this is kind of the genius of the book, each candidate symbolized one element of Unitarianism. So each member of the search committee has to ask themselves, which element of this faith do I value most? What principle belongs on top to me? So at one point in the book, they're considering a candidate who's a kick-ass activist. She's constantly out there marching and protesting, and Dana, the protagonist of the book, is going, that's awesome, but when does she have time to craft really high-quality sermons? Which was an important factor for her. So in the book, the search committee ends up split along a generational line. The older members value experience and wisdom. The younger ones kind of are after a fresh spin on how to do church. And no one candidate is winning on all scorecards. The process feels like you're trying to make a bed with a sheet that's too small. You tuck in one corner and another corner pops out. And the issue hanging in the air is, oh my gosh, if we as a group can't agree on what it is we're even looking for, we're never going to find it. And if you're on the committee, you don't want to let down the client, the congregation, by choosing a mismatch. But you also don't want to get skunked and come away with nothing. That's called a failed search, and it's awful. And I remember we had to keep repeating to ourselves, look, there are no perfect candidates, even though Unitarians expect something close to that. What I came to realize is that a search of this kind is really a deep dive into the idea of consensus, how it's brokered, what it takes, what hard work it is, what hard collective work it is, what kind of leadership it requires. Thank you, Leslie. And how no matter how systematically you go about it, it remains a little bit mysterious what you end up with. A kind of wisdom of the crowd effect kicks in. There's an interesting thing anthropologists have observed with the Bedouin people of Saharan Africa. These folks are ace navigators. They can dead reckon their way across 1,000 kilometers of open desert, with no devices, obviously, not even a compass. And researchers have wondered how they do it. And part of the answer is they use each other. The group spaces out in wide single file so that the person in the back can see when the leader is drifting off the straight line of the original coordinates. That straight line is consensus. It may not be perfectly accurate, but it's the group's best guess. And that, I came to understand that honoring the group's best guess is really an exercise in humility. The word Dana uses in the book is surrender. We are surrendering to search together. We're surrendering to the messiness of it, the mystery, the majesty, the ministry of it. Come what may, together. Now, this interregnum we're going to do just in a second. I just want to leap. There we go. We'll come back to that. Thanks, Joe. There's another fantastic book, if I may say, called The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life by this fellow named Boyd Varty. And he runs a wildlife reserve in South Africa, and he's an accomplished tracker and guide. His job is to find the animals that are roaming around out there on the plains so that his clients can bag a nice photograph of them to take home. So this guy Boyd, he's a very good lion tracker. But Boyd is a piker compared to this other fellow on his staff named Renius. And Renius is an amazing lion tracker. He almost always delivers the goods. And Renius says something in the book that has stuck with me. They're out in the Jeep one day with some clients. And on this day, Renius is coming up empty. The lion has eluded them. The Jeep's going farther and farther off the planned route, and the customers are starting to get a little bit nervous. And finally, one of them pipes up and says, Renius, do you know where you're going? And Renius says evenly, I don't know where we're going, but I know exactly how to get there. And what he meant was, he had a plan. He had a system. All he needs is the next track, just a smudge of a paw print. And from that, he's able to dial down the infinite possibilities of where that animal could have gone to a single moment of knowing, a single moment of presence, and then one more after that. He doesn't know where he's going, but he knows exactly how to get there, step by step, and sign by sign. And I thought, that is the definition of faith. It's actually a definition of faith that I can live with, maybe the only one. It's the one that balances knowing and not knowing into this rare, wonderful equipoise. And that's a rare thing these days when everyone feels like they have to be certain about everything. Someone once asked the novelist Walker Percy, "Are you a believer?" And he said, Am I a believer? I'm a searcher. I'm a searcher. And the interviewer said, wait, what do you mean? What search? What's the search? And Percy said, the search is what all of us would undertake if we weren't sunk in the everydayness of our own lives. The search is what all of us would undertake if we weren't sunk in the everydayness of our own lives. And that, I think, is why we come to church. It's why we come to this church, to escape the everydayness of our own lives, at least once in a while. You've heard the line, "Not all who wander are lost." I always want to add, not all who wander are lost. They might be Unitarian missionaries. It's like, hey man, are you converting anyone? Now that is a good question. And the questions are the search. The best questions are the questions a little kid might ask, what I call the Bill and Jessica questions. What's going on? Who am I? What's it all about, Alfie? Every major religion concerns itself with questions like that. There are 100 words for what that's the search for, but let's call it the soul. There are no answers, by the way. The answers aren't the point. The asking is the point. That's what the search is all about. Remember Ken Hill's line, most people don't know how close they are to being lost. I always want to add, most people don't know how close they are to being lost, and also they don't realize how much that is actually okay. How much it's actually okay to be a little bit lost, Unless you're bleeding from the head, unless you're out of food and a storm's coming, if you're not in immediate jeopardy, or your spouse isn't expecting you home because they need the car to get to work, sorry, Jen, it's fine to be a little lost. Our first instinct when we lose our bearings is to whip out the phone and ask Siri, "Siri, where am I?" But Siri will never find you because Siri is homing in on the position where you were last, and you're not there anymore. You've moved. So the real answer is, the only honest answer Siri can give you to where am I is recalculating. I think if we were a little better, a little more okay with being lost, we'd be less desperate to be found. We'd be less anxious and less scared, and we'd kind of get it through our heads that lostness isn't something that has to be solved, at least right away. We're all a little lost all the time. We're all a little lost, and we are never lost. Both are true. The Buddhists have nothing on Unitarians for paradox. You are not lost right now. You are not. Demonstrably, you are not lost. You know exactly where you are. You're in that chair. And I'm standing here looking at you. We're right here, right now, together. And maybe that's all the where we really need. So, we can skip back 2 slides, and I want to try that exercise that you saw come up. I feel like we've arrived at the perfect place for this. Just before we come in for a landing on this reflection, I promise I will wind up that story we started with. We're going to try something that Stephen Atkinson introduced in this congregation. It was super powerful when he did it, and I've been wanting to fold it into a service for a while, and now's the time. So I'm going to ask Catherine, you to help with this. The idea here is Catherine's going to play a little bit of Bach's Prelude in C, and we have 3 words that we're going to say, and we have 3 gestures that we're going to do, and we're going to align the words and the gestures. So the 3 words are, next one, there we go, I am here. And the gestures are, I am here. You may want to stand for this. I would recommend maybe we stand for this. I think it feels like it feels better, but do as you wish. And and if you start in with Bach's Prelude, we'll get the rhythm down, and then we're going to do this for about 3 minutes or so. And what happens is if you just kind of get into the flow of it, you'll find that you get into a different kind of state that is really wonderful. So we'll go like this. I am here. I am here. I Here. I am here. I am here. I am here. Wonderful. Is it a chant? Is it a prayer? I don't know. Thank you, Catherine. But the idea is to surrender to it, and I think we did. So now you know where you are. Your root knowledge of how you came to be in that chair doesn't really matter. Your survey knowledge is what counts. Where you are in relation to everything and everyone who matters to you in this moment. You are at the still center of the system that you're a part of. That's where you are. That's who you are. And maybe North Shore Rescue finds you and maybe it doesn't. Maybe a ministerial search committee is successful and maybe it isn't. But at some level, the thing that's being looked for, whether it's the elusive lion that the paying customers want so desperately to see, or the perfect minister who will get us out of this mess, that animal, that person, that entity, it can't be tagged and bagged because it was never ours to find in the first place. Now, I promise to wrap up the tale of our Strathcona Park escapade. That Hail Mary into the void, that SOS we sent across the lake in the pitch darkness to we knew not who, it landed. There was a group on the other side of the lake, and they saw our little light. And the next morning, we were awakened by footsteps, shadows across the tent. You folks alive in there? They had a first aid kit and a box of cereal. I think it was Harvest Crunch. It was unbelievable. Major hugs all around. When the second plane came for them, they sent the pilot back on another trip for us. And I could still see it, that plane. A red and white de Havilland beaver drops out of the sky, skims to a stop at the shoreline, and the pilot wades in and comes to greet us and helps us onto the pontoon and in, and the engine roars to life, and I'm thinking, by God, we're going to make it. Drew will soon be getting the care he needs in the hospital. And by the way, I should say he recovered fully, and if anything, that clock in the noggin made him even smarter than he was to begin with. But it suddenly occurred to me as the plane lifted off and banked over the water, we had no money. I said to the pilot, I'm afraid I don't have a dime on me. And he takes his headset off. What's that? And I said, I can't pay you. I have no cash. He waves his hand dismissively. Oh, no worries, man. And I'm going, wow, that is so kind. What a lovely and fitting ending to all this. And he smiles, and we smile, and the cabin of that airline fills with sunlight. And then the pilot reaches under his seat, and he pulls out a little device. I take Visa.
felt like nobody was there? Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? Have you ever felt like you could disappear? Like you could fall and no one would hear?
So let that lonely feeling wash away, 'cause maybe there's a reason to believe you'll be okay. 'Cause when you don't feel strong enough to stand, you can reach out your hand. And
Someone will come running,
and I know
they'll take you home.
even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, and when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. When the sun comes streaming in, 'cause you reach out and you rise again. Lift your head and look around, you will be found. You will be found. You will be found. You will be
My daughter Lila calls that song a trembler. Lila, you are right. This month, our outreach recipient is the North Shore Women's Center. We've supported their programs to help women and families in our community for many years. The center welcomes women and gender diverse individuals, including those who identify as trans, two-spirit, and non-binary. It's a drop-in space offering resources, programs, and safety. You can now use your credit card by pay online by holding your phone up to the QR code there, or you can do it the old way by putting some money in the plate that's coming around. We're grateful for whatever way you decide, whatever you're able to offer. Thank you so much. Would the ushers please come forward? For these gifts and all you do to help weave this tapestry of love that we call community. We are so thankful. And now it's time for a few announcements as we wrap this up. You can check your e-bulletin. There's quite a bit going on at the moment in the church. Check your e-bulletin for the fuller menu, but here are the blue plate specials, let's say. This Friday night, Bunko is back. Is there still room for people to sign up? Okay. Barry and Sue Forbes are hosting the rollicking dice game that anchored so many fun fests of old. This year we're dropping the D. It's the straight-on fun fest. You can buy tickets in the church through the church website, or maybe from Barry's trench coat pocket if you get them on the right day. Butterfly cleanup. The next morning after Bunko night, that's Saturday morning, everyone's invited to help put the butterfly garden to bed. Meet here at 10 a.m., weather permitting, for a gentle cleaning of the butterfly garden and the John Cox Memorial Garden. Here's a new initiative from the Sunday service team. It's still kind of cooking. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say it, but I'm going to. Keep an eye out for the start date on this. We haven't quite figured out when, but it'll be soon. We're calling it Welcome Wednesdays, and it's open to anyone, but especially newcomers who want to meet each other and air their questions about Unitarianism. It'll be light and not at all business. There'll be snacks, and each week there'll be kind of an icebreaker question that we can share our thoughts on. For instance, tell us about a movie that changed your life, or a book that changed your life. So keep your eye out for the beginning of this. I think it's going to be really great. Diane Hicks mentioned no meditation this week because of the holiday, so if you're wondering about that. Next Sunday, very not to miss service, and Allison's shepherding it, and I'm going to invite her up to tell us a little bit more about what you can expect there.
Thank you.
Sure.
You need this one on. I'll just
Here, I'll get real close to you and you can use my mic.
There we are. So what it is, can you hear me? Yes.
Jen, you're here. It's okay. Strengthening the golden threads of seeing one another. It's ostensibly it's about the work of the North Shore North Shore Women's Centre. But it's also about how do we see the actual other. We tend to be blinded by the obvious things, the sight of people, the smell of people, the way they appear, the way they hold themselves. This is so deceptive because the actual other is in there. And I want to be talking about opening our hearts to that actual other wherever we may see them, whether we sit beside you in this congregation, or whether we work with you, whether we shop with them, or whether they are on the streets. Opening a place to see the actual other. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Allison. We once were lost, now we're found, or maybe we're not. Some of us are still in search. Either way, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, we're going to now sing our final song, hymn number 25. And I know this one's a bit divisive in this group, but I think it's beautiful and it's fitting for today, and we're going to do it. A warning, trigger warning, that the G word is coming at you one time. Assume a defensive crouch if you need to. Let's sing Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Feel free to harmonize.
'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious thing that grace appeared, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already known 'tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've known days to sing God's praise, and then we first begun.
Just one final little idea here. Chris Christopherson, the singer-songwriter, died 2 weeks ago. He was a big deal in my family growing up, mostly because my sister had a big crush on him. One of his hits was called Why Me? And the funny thing about this song is it's not a lament about bad luck, it's a befuddled prayer of thanksgiving for good luck. It's a very Christian song, and it seemed so out of character for Chris. I thought, that's weird. This guy, he didn't live like a Christian. He lived like a rock star and a movie star. And that was the point of this song. Chris lived large through the 60s, woke up with a hangover and went, whoa, I'm still here. I wonder why. And then he turned his exquisite songwriting skills to the job of framing up that question to anyone and everyone who ever came to wonder about their own privilege and their own luck, whatever their beliefs or lack thereof. Anyone who ever said, I'm still here. I wonder why. No doubt about it, we are lucky. We are privileged. It's Thanksgiving. We've done what we can. We've ended up where we are. We don't know the whys of fate. We can only say thank you. And I say thank you to you. Thank you for coming. I'm so grateful that we can kind of muddle through the fog every week. It's a very special thing I think we have going here. And the good news is we get to do it again next week. Let's turn out the light. We extinguish this flame. The world calls us to live with depth, meaning, and purpose. We go forth with courage and love. Go out and spread your wonderfulness. Let's circle round.